We continue here our series on reflections and resilience of what we have been experiencing the last 2 years, what we have lived through collectively together as a Jewish community here and as a Jewish community nationwide and as a Jewish community worldwide. There have been a lot of emotions, a roller coaster ride of emotions, good days, some terrible days, some tragic days, some triumphant days. And we've experienced all of this together. So I want to bring this locally to a particular story many of you will remember, but there's a particular part of that I want to focus on. The date was November 6th, 2023. There was an elderly Jew nearby. His name was Paul Kessler. Paul Kessler saw that there was going to be a demonstration on the corner of Westlake Boulevard and Thousand Oaks Boulevard, and people were being asked to come to demonstrate their support for Israel because there was going to be a pro-Hamas rally taking place on the other side of the street. And that's just literally 2 miles from this location, from right here. If you remember what takes place, the pro-Palestinian rally crosses the street to the corner with Paul Kessler. You've seen the picture. He's just standing there along with an Israeli flag, harming no one, yelling nothing, just standing there showing his support. And he is bludgeoned to death with a megaphone. Someone with a megaphone hits him in the face with it. He falls to the ground, he bangs his head, and he passes away a few hours later. If you remember the aftermath of the event, there was press all over the place. The Canal Valley suddenly was the focus of the world because this was soon after October 7th, and now it's hitting the streets of suburbia, of a very peaceful Jewish community. It's a loving community, the Canal Valley. These things don't happen here. These things shouldn't happen anywhere in the world, but definitely not here in Westlake Village, California. Within literally a few hours of his passing, this parking lot was loaded with media. Every media truck was here. It happened to have been that at that same time we were having a meeting, a pre-scheduled meeting for how the community could respond to anti-Semitism. So there was a meeting taking place here, and all of a sudden the media is pulling in one truck after the next. The state senator was here as well with me. We were doing one interview after the next interview after the next interview. In the days after this event, I was invited to a press conference by the sheriff and other community leaders. And following the formal press conference, one of the reporters that was there, who had seen me the night at the Chabad house, he asked if he could talk to me. He was one of the news reporters of a Los Angeles television station, and he wanted to talk to me off the record, not with the camera, just have a conversation with me. And this is what he said. It was rather surprising because I was expecting it to be some media-related question, and it was more personal. He said, "I'm Jewish, and with this current wave of anti-Semitism, my daughter told me that she's afraid to keep the mezuzah up on her door, and that she wants to take the mezuzah down because she's afraid of anti-Semitism. It bothers me to hear my daughter say that, but at the same time, I want my daughter to be protected, and she feels threatened by it." I didn't know what to say. So I had told her that I had met the rabbi the night before this conversation, and hopefully he'll be at the press conference at the sheriff's station. I'll ask him his opinion on this. So I told him something to this effect. "Tell your daughter that I certainly understand her fears. Many are facing this level of anti-Semitism that we never thought existed. We heard about it in Polish times, in days when our grandparents lived in the shtetl, but we've never experienced it. We've never seen this on our own streets to this extent. So I understand it. But if you take the mezuzah down, you will have allowed the terrorists into your home. That's what you have done. You will have let them take over your mind. They will now dictate your life. They're in control of you, and that's what they want more than anything else. They want that fear level. Please tell your daughter that the evil that raised its ugly head on October 7th, and its sympathizers and its apologists are all around the world, are a force of terrible darkness. That's what they are. They represent darkness. And if we retreat in fear, that only emboldens the forces of evil, and they get stronger and stronger, and they grow greater and greater. Darkness only wins if light surrenders. If light recedes, if light lives in fear and therefore says, I will not be light anymore, I will hide my light, that's how darkness wins. But when light shines, darkness is immediately banished. And at this time, we all have to shine our light. And we have to shine it more brightly than we did before. We need to become more outwardly Jewish, not just inwardly Jewish. It's not just an inward pride that we have to feel. We have to express that pride in a public fashion. That mezuzah that you have on your door, that is your protection more than anything else. It's a sign that your home is proudly Jewish. And every time you pass it, let it remind you that God is watching over you. It needs to give you strength, not fear. Don't be afraid when you see it that some anti-Semite will see it and recognize you're Jewish. Feel stronger every time you see it. Don't hide your Jewishness, but wear it publicly and wear it proudly. The reporter smiled and thanked me and said, I'll try to convey this over to my daughter in your words, to which I said, and you can quote me with this on the record. This doesn't have to be an off-the-record conversation. And subsequently to that, in all interviews that I faced, I would then mention this conversation without saying his name, and speaking to anyone Jewish that's out there, don't take those mezuzahs down. In fact, if you don't have a mezuzah yet, put one up. That's our strongest response. It's not a time for us to Jew down, not after October 7th and not today. We need to stand strong. We need to stand pride. It's time for us, what I say, is to Jew up, not Jew down. Whatever we've been practicing before, let's take it up a notch. Instead of avoiding Jewish gatherings, we should attend as many as we can. You know, we were surprised last week when we got the results. I wouldn't say surprised. We knew that Mandani was going to win the mayoral election in New York. Kind of, we all knew the polls going into it. I think what hurt the most was when you start getting the demographics and find out that 33% of the Jewish vote went for him. This is not a Democrat-Republican thing. This is not a liberal-conservative type thing. The opponent that he faced, Cuomo, was from a Democratic family of Mario Cuomo, who was the governor of New York for many years, a leader of the Democratic Party for many. His son was on the ballot as well. So this is not really a political question. How could 33% of a Jewish community vote for someone that has said the things that he has said? I'm putting politics aside, or putting all those policies aside. You can have your choice of any type of government that you decide to vote for, but when someone openly states that they are an anti-Semite and they don't believe Israel has a right to exist, and you are a Jew, it's not just a question of how did you vote for this fellow, but why didn't you speak up louder? And so we can analyze this, we can question it, but the fact is, if we raise our children without any Jewish education, then they're free game. And whoever will influence them better, and he's excellent on social media. His skills on social media are top notch. His 30-second pitches out there, they're great. Hey, why wouldn't you vote for free buses and free homes and rent control and free food? Now, I would vote for that. Sounds great on the sound bites, right? Everything is going to be free. But again, that's politics. I'm not dealing with the politics. Look at what else he has said just over the last 2 years. Look at the people that he hangs out with. People that celebrated 9/11, put Israel aside even. And yet 33% of our brothers and sisters voted for this fellow. We have to Jew up. We have to bring up children and grandchildren that recognize and understand the importance of Judaism, of Israel, of tradition. Without it, they're free game. And a great ad commercial can get to them and influence them. And so take it as a warning, not just for New York. and what's going to happen in New York politically over the next 4 years. Put that aside. The real warning we have to take is, what message are we not getting across to our youth? How are we failing to reach the next generation of the Jewish people? That's something each and every single one of us need to ask ourselves. October 7th was a reminder to us that we need to raise our families, ourselves included, to be more involved and more connected and more bonded. Stronger supporters of Israel, not less. And so the campaign, I would say, over the last 2 years, especially in Israel, but throughout the entire world, to get Jews more involved, has been so overwhelmingly successful. There have been more tefillin that have been sold, ordered, written by scribes in the last 2 years than any 2 years on record. There have been more tzitzis, the talit katon, that have been ordered in the last 2 years than any other 2 years prior. Which means these orders are not coming from the observant Jews because they have already been doing it all this time. It's coming from the less observant, the non-observant, that are suddenly saying, I need to connect stronger. So let's just look at that mitzvot film. What is it? Yes, it's a biblical commandment to place a sign on your arm, to place it between your eyes, on your head, and to dedicate the feeling, the actions of your hand, the feelings of your heart, the thoughts of your mind, and devote it and dedicate it to God. And we say the Am Yisrael, the statement of our faith, while we put it on. But there's also a magic that's going on. There's a connectivity that's going on. Think of the tefillin in this way, because we're very familiar with this over the last 10, 15 years. There's a cell phone, which we didn't grow up with, right? It came later in our lives. It used to be the phone that was on the wall somewhere near the kitchen. You were able to walk as far as that wire took you, right? You used to have the dial. It would take you about 20 seconds to dial the number if you were really quick at it, right? But you had about 6 feet of space. That was it. Then it changed that there was going to be a phone that could be cordless. Remember when that invention came out? Which means you can actually walk around your house and speak on the phone. But it was the regular AT&T phone. It was the regular phone on the wall. It just had that you didn't have that 6-foot cord. You could walk a distance away from the actual phone. And then the cell phone came out. And the idea that every one of us, it used to be just the president would have the cell phone, right? Heads of state would have the cell phone. That every one of us shmegegis can have a cell phone. How does it work? Something called Wi-Fi. Where's Wi-Fi? You see it anywhere? Anyone see the Wi-Fi in the air? You only know about it because when you put your phone on, you press the Wi-Fi. It tells you if there's Wi-Fi in the room, and if so, you need to put in the password. But there's Wi-Fi everywhere. And then there's a new part of it, and that's called Bluetooth, right? So you can have this little gadget in your ear, and you don't even have to hold your phone and you're talking because the earpiece is connected to your phone through the Bluetooth. And the phone is connected to the other phones through the Wi-Fi. All connected. We're all connected. Tefillin is that connectivity between us. So the tefillin is the Wi-Fi between us and God. You don't see the wire connecting it, just like you don't see the Wi-Fi, but it's there. The tefillin connects us between us and God. The tefillin connects us between one Jew and the next Jew. And that bonds us all. So when there was war in Gaza and our troops are on the front lines and we want to help them, we put on the tefillin, and that sends blessings their way. That power of getting everyone involved, getting women to light the Shabbat candles to bring more light into the world, getting men to put on the tefillin to bring more energy into the world. It's literally written in the text of the Torah that the enemy will see this and they will fear. There's something about the magic of the Jew observing and practicing their tradition that puts fear in our enemies. It was in the early stages of the war, there was part of the troops that entered Gaza. There was a religious soldier who was manning an outpost. And he was there, fighting a whole group of terrorists there. And suddenly the commanding officer comes running over to him and says, "You're Dati, right? You're the religious one, right? Come with me." He says, but I've been assigned this post. He says, "Yes, but I'm your commander. You come with me." So I followed him, he says. And he tells me that I'm switching you out. I need you somewhere else. And he told him, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go off to a safe area, and all I'm asking you to do is pray. I need you to be in charge of prayers right now. So he's confused because he knew his commander was not a religious person, and all of a sudden he's being commanded by this commander. Your job right now is to take out that prayer book and just start praying. But if that's his orders, that's his orders. He takes out his book of Psalms, he takes out his Tehillim, and he begins to pray with everything that he has, with all the devotion they can possibly put together, with all the concentration that he can possibly have. About 15 minutes later, commander comes back and says, good job. Thank you very much. You did your job. Now he's very confused. What's this all about? So he says, I'll tell you what was going on. We had 3 APCs. These are armored personnel carriers. They were filled to capacity with our soldiers. They were heading out to join the fight. Now these APCs, they're armored, but they're not like a tank. They don't have that type of protection, so they're very vulnerable to attack. So this commander is telling his officer, our 3 APCs were stuck in a quagmire. They were stuck in a trap that was set by Hamas. And they had them trapped. They were immobile. They were blocked from the front. They were blocked from the rear. They couldn't move. They were exposed to constant fire. And they were, in effect, sitting ducks. We were going to lose 40 soldiers right there. And reinforcements were not going to come for at least another half hour, 45 minutes, which would have been too late. I'm thinking of every possible strategy I can come up with, and the only thing that comes to me right now is I need God. And I'm thinking, I need God. I know I got one religious guy right here. Let him try communicating. You know how to read this stuff. You know what to read. So I ran to you and I say, do your thing. And literally, as you started, somehow there was this little hope, little way out. And the 3 APCs ran for it, and they're all safe. Thank you very much for your prayers. Now, when we hear stories like this, and there have been many stories like this, the first thing that we say is, yes, we've heard this, that there's no atheists in a foxhole. When it really comes down to it, we all find that faith within us. But I think it's something a little deeper than that. The Talmud tells us that the Jewish people are compared to the olive. That's what it compares us to. Just like the olive gives forth its oil when it's squeezed, so too, when the Jewish people are squeezed, that's when their truest and deepest essence is revealed. It takes that little bit of squeezing. When they squeeze the olive, what comes out? It's oil. Olive oil, that's the liquid gold, so to say. So too says the Talmud, when Jews are squeezed, that's often when the best of them comes out. We've been squeezed since October 7th. And that brings out the best of us. It brings out the olive oil within each and every single one of us. And we've seen it. So Israel is incredibly resilient. They're capable, they're powerful, they're tenacious, they're fierce, they're smart, they're cunning, and they're strong. And we've seen that over the last 2 years. The question really is, what about us? Israel is going to be okay. I have confidence that Israel will be fine. They're safer now in Israel than they were before October 7th. There's no longer a Syrian border to worry about. The north is under control. Gaza right now, as of it is today, seems under control. Half of Gaza is in the IDF's hands. Israel is going to be okay. What will happen in its upcoming elections over the next year, I don't know, but Israel's going to be okay. My question is us. How has it affected us? What will be the lasting effect on us? How have we all been changed since October 7th? And my hope is that we recognize the need for that Jewish awareness and Jewish pride and Jewish education for us and for our children. I want to share a story that made this very profound impression on you. There's a man who leads a large group from the United States on tours of Israel. That's what he does. And every year, the highlight of this trip is always the Friday night at the Kotel. You go Friday night to the Western Wall, and you see Jews from all over the world gathering together in the beauty of Shabbat, and the beauty of prayer, and the beauty of community. And then the students join, and then the soldiers join, and everyone is dancing together. There's something that the most secular of Jews will feel at that moment. They'll feel their soul. Because it's right there. It's in the air. So that's always the highlight. And the highlight always is when he arranges for a group of soldiers to join his group, his Americans there, and dance with them at the Western Wall on a Friday night. That makes Americans dancing with guys with Uzis somehow lifts their spirits. So one time, in addition to the regular soldiers that he brought, his friend brought a contingency of covert soldiers, not in uniform. These were military intelligence officers that have really been through a lot and then gone on dangerous missions in other parts of the world. And at one point, this rabbi that brings people to New York is told by his contact that always arranges for the soldiers to come, don't steer right now. But the guy that's standing, and he tells him where he's standing, that guy is, if you're familiar with the movie series called Rambo, he's the Rambo of Israel. That's the guy. If you've ever heard of missions to other countries, undercover missions and stuff like that, he's been there. This man has seen what very few people have seen. So if you make your way in that area, in that direction, try starting a conversation with him. Maybe he'll be talkative, and you can get some great stories out of him that you can use on your tours when you give people tours. But I'm telling you, he is the hero of heroes. When it comes to Israeli military covert operations, there's no one that's been there like this guy. So now this guy is all excited by the challenge and this opportunity. And this group leader makes his way over to this man where he was standing. And he's trying to engage in conversation. So he starts with the most neutral thing you could do. Shabbat Shalom. That's the universal message of hello. And the fellow says Shabbat Shalom. It didn't go anywhere thereafter. And then he says, so, did you always want to be a member of the IDF? And he says, no. One word answer. I hear you're a very brave man. He says, no, I'm not. By nature, I'm not brave at all. And this tour guide is trying to think of how do I trying to get a story out of him, but he's not really saying anything. And finally, this guy says to him, tell me, are you with the group of Americans? So he says, I'm not just with the group, I'm the group leader. So he says, oh, okay. So you want to try to get a story out of me, is that what you're trying to do? He says, yeah, someone told me that you are a somebody, and that I should ask you if you want to say anything about your life and how you got to your position, how you came to join the army. So he says, all right, I'll give you the original story. The original story goes back to prior to the establishment of the modern state of Israel. The Jews are living in Eretz Yisrael, but keep in mind in 1945, 46, 47, we don't have an IDF. The IDF is formed when David Ben-Gurion forms a government. Jews are living there and were being harassed and killed by Arabs and harassed and killed by the British. And we needed to fight back. The Arabs took advantage of the fact that we were the weak and they were the strong, and they used it. The British just didn't like us. The Arabs had the oil, and the British wanted to take care of those that had the oil. That's what they needed. And so we formed mini armies. You know, your pre-1948 history, there were different mini armies, different groups. Begin led a group, Shamir led a group. Ben Gurion had a group. Yitzchak Rabin was involved. Everyone had their own little gangs. And the gangs didn't necessarily get along with one another because they had different philosophies. How offensive do you want to get? Do you want to just be defensive or do you want to be offensive? So these were paramilitary groups. You know them by the names of Haganah and Etzel and Lechi and Palmach. And it was to defend the Jews from the pogroms, from the Arabs, and from the oppression of the British. So this soldier is telling our tour guide at the wall, my father was a member of one of those groups. I was a little kid. One night, my father was on a mission and he was shot. He refused to go to the hospital because the hospitals were controlled by the British. And if a Jew came in shot, that tells them that you're part of the paramilitary, and if you're part of the paramilitary, you're going to prison. And the British did not take good care of the Jews in prison, and there were many that were executed in prison. If you know, again, some of your painful history of pre-1948. And so, even if you were shot, you didn't go to the hospital. You went home, and you found doctors within the Jewish community to come to your home and try to treat you and try to save you. My job as a kid was that if anyone was going to get shot in my household, I knew the doctor's house to go to. I knew the code of the knock that I needed to do on the door, which told the fellow inside that a Jew has been shot. Get your stuff and follow me. So I was a kid at the time, but I remember it like yesterday. It was pandemonium in the house while my father came in gushing with blood. My mother started pulling curtains off the windows to try to stop the bleeding. She took sheets off the shelves, anything that she can to try to control the bleeding. I ran to the house that I knew before where I was supposed to run. I knocked on the door of the secret doctor. He came immediately out. I took him right to my house. And then he went to work on my father. After about an hour or two, we got the bleeding to finally stop. And everything seemed okay. And they set up their mini hospital right there in our apartment. 3 nights later, I'm walking towards my room. And my father calls out to me. And he asks me to sit down. I sat down at the edge of the bed. He looked at me. And in a tone of voice I'd never heard from him before, he said, my son, it's time. So I said, Abba, what's it time for? He said, it's time for you to be a man. So I said, Abba, I'm 11 years old. What are you talking about? It's time for you to be a man. Abba, why do you keep saying that? What are you trying to say to me? It's time for you to be a man. And as he said it more forcefully, it dawned on me what he's trying to say to me. And I just yelled out, no, you can't. You can't leave us. You can't leave me. You can't leave Ima. I need you. Ima needs you. The community needs you. Everybody needs you. You're not leaving. You have to hold on. I'm only 11 years old. And I'm not brave. Ani lo yachol. I can't do this. I can't. My father shook his head again and said, you need to become a man. To which I responded, I'm not able to be a man. And then my father got very animated. And he said, able? Did I say anything about able? Is that what you're thinking? Now, my father wasn't a religious man, but he was a student of Jewish history. And this is what he says to me. Do you think Abraham was able, when he's called upon by God to teach the entire world that there's only one God, do you think Abraham thought he was able to do this? Do you think Joseph thought he was able to undo the entire economy of the largest country at the time, Egypt? And to save everyone from famine, he thought he was able as a kid, as a teenager, as a young man, able? You think Moses thought he was able to stand up to Pharaoh, the most powerful man in ancient times, and to take 2 million Jews out of Egypt? Do you think he thought he was able? You think King David thought he was able to slay Goliath and become the king? Able? Do you think anyone is ever able to be the person they're meant to be? I didn't ask you if you were able. You don't have to be able. You have to be willing. And if you're willing, you'll find the ability. God will give you the ability. My son, I'm not asking you to be able, I'm asking you to be willing. So are you willing? That's what I need to know. This is what this officer is telling this American tour guide. He says, from that moment on, up until this very day, I have lived with those last words my father spoke to me. And before every tour of duty, and before every mission, and before every operation, I wake up that morning and I say to myself, I can't do it. I don't think I'm able to do it. But my father thinks I am. So I'm willing. And that's how I've approached every phase and aspect of my service to the land and to the people of Israel. That story that this man tells this tour guide, that's the story and essence of the Jewish people. That's the story of Israel. And that's the story of each and every one of our lives. You know, when my father and other survivors of the Holocaust came to this country, with nothing more than the shirts on their back, people were telling them in one way or another to give it up, that it's over. That the lifestyles and traditions that they grew up with went up in smoke in Auschwitz and in Treblinka. You're not going to be able to transplant what you had in the Polish cities here in America. And what did they do? They kept having families and building communities, not because they had the ability and the wherewithal to do these things, but they had the will. And if you have the will, there's nothing you can't do. We are in this room today because of the heroes of the past generation that didn't have the ability, but they had the will. Past generation came out of a Holocaust that decimated our people, that took 6 million of our best, that took 1.5 million children and put them into gas chambers. How do you stand up from that? Do you have that ability? No human being has that ability. But we had the will. Our people have always been living in Eretz Yisrael, in Israel, but when we came back to Israel in masses, our neighbors did not exactly greet us with gift boxes of hummus and dates and pomegranates saying, hey, welcome home, it's about time. We need someone to turn these deserts and swamps into a thriving country again. That's not exactly the reception we received. It should have been, but it wasn't. It was more like this. Either you go back to Europe or we'll drive you into the Mediterranean and kill your kids along the way. That was it. Remember that TV spokeswoman, the newscaster at the White House lawn, when she's talking about Israel, that we took away the land of the Arabs, and the reporter says, so where should we go? She says, go back to Poland, go back to Germany. Oh yeah, we did very well there. That's what they said to us, get out of the land. But those tough Jews said, we are home and we're never leaving again. We will have an army, we'll have a navy, we'll have an air force. And if you come after us, we're going to go right back at you, twice as hard. Never again are we going to say die. We're never going to say quit. We're back home and we're here to stay. And through sheer will, because that's all it was will, a bunch of haggard survivors became a nation of heroes. And we saw it on display the last 2 years. Look at what Israel put on display for the world to see. The strength of Israel. The morals, I will say, of the IDF, which we'll talk more about when we talk about the IDF. You see, the difference between greatness and mediocrity is not determined by what we're able to do, but by what we're willing to do. The true test of what we're made of doesn't occur when things are going smoothly and when everything makes sense. It's when life throws us circumstances that are about to knock us down, but we choose instead to stand up and fight on. That's what October 7th was to us. It nearly knocked us to the ground, and we nearly couldn't get up, but we found the way to get up, to rally together, to show our strength back, to fight back, to take on the offense, to rally the Jewish community throughout the world. And so rather than be disheartened or discouraged by the overwhelming challenges that are before us, we should be emboldened by them. You know, it says, we are a nation that rises like a lion. We spoke about that the last 2 weeks. It's time for us to summon every ounce of faith and courage within us and stand strong. We should stand strong with fortitude and ferocity of a lion, not a lion to dominate or to devour, but a lion to defend, to declare that Jewish life is sacred, that Jewish identity is eternal, and that even if we are wounded, we will never ever be broken. We need to stand up and confront the darkness of the world with light. We need to stand up in the knowledge that the power of good can defeat the forces of evil. We need to stand up and stand proud of who we are and what we represent. We need to stand up and speak up and not to stay silent in the face of the hatred and the lies. We need to stand up and become more informed about your history, about your heritage, about your traditions. We need to stand up with solidarity for our fellow Jews all over the world and for Israel every single day. We need to stand up and get more involved. Because every mitzvah that we do, every good deed that we do, every way we connect ourselves with Torah and with our heritage, whether it's lighting the Shabbat candles or putting on the tefillin or putting up a mezuzah, infuses you and our entire nation with new strength and vitality. Indeed, we are a nation that rises like a lion. It's not just a poetic phrase, it's who we are. Think about it. We rose up from expulsions. We rose up from pogroms, we rose up from a Holocaust, and now we rose up again with courage, with faith, with unity, with solidarity, to boldly declare to ourselves, to our family, and to the world, Am Yisrael Chai.